Hello, everybody. How you doing? We're here today to talk about how soon, or maybe do we know when we can expect the decision from Judge Sukowitz. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and because I know I've been getting a lot of comments on my channel, a lot of not just on my channel, but in the comments section on my channel, but also people have been messaging me on my Facebook page. And they've been asking. I've had 2 people ask in the last 2 days. So I figured it'd probably be a good time to go ahead and talk about it and clear this up, hopefully for once and for all. But if not, there are a considerable number of people out there asking for clarification on this. And so that's what we're here today to try to provide. So, hi, Tracie.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
We have Tracie with us here today, everybody. You know who Tracie is, obviously. We're all doing Mammothon together, having a great old time. Mammothon. Anyway, so, and obviously Tracie has a lot of expertise when it comes to, maybe, she has a lot of knowledge, legal knowledge, particularly when it comes to that area of Wisconsin, just because she's a local there. She sees what happens there in the courts fairly, often, and she just has more of a ear to the ground. And so she's able to inform us kind of more, accurately, really, on this kind of stuff. And I think we even make mistakes, right?
Yep.
Like initially when we were reading this decision, we may have misspoke. So hopefully we're here today to clear that up once and for all. As once again, this is going to be requiring us to look back at what went on with the CD when it was remanded to the circuit court, and analyzing the wording there and how things went in that situation to help inform us of, how things might go in this particular situation where it's very similar. So but maybe they've chosen different wording this time. So that's what we're going to be talking about. So, Tracie, obviously, when we were reading this at first, we thought there might be a 90-day deadline.
Right.
And I figured I'd give you a chance to explain why we might have thought that.
Okay. The 90 days came from the fact that Supreme Court rules say that a circuit judge has to decide on a motion in front of them within 90 days. That's where the 90 days came from.
Right.
And that is typically how it worked. If you file a motion with the circuit court, the judge has 90 days to rule. Where the confusion came in was the fact that since this is on limited remand and the Court of Appeals maintain jurisdiction, they are actually the ones that set any type of briefing schedule.
Okay.
And
right.
Since they didn't give a deadline, that means there isn't a deadline. And that's why it was confusion. It was because the Court of Appeals actually has the authority to set the dates, the due dates.
Right.
And
which is because they're retaining jurisdiction. So it's
right.
essentially still, the ball is still in their court.
Right.
They're
it's not under circuit court jurisdiction, and that's why those normal rules don't apply.
And so, and so it's because they haven't said specifically it's open.
Right.
Right. Okay. So.
And in my defense.
Yeah. In all of our defense, I mean, hey.
This doesn't happen. That's the thing. These limited remands to be able to present new evidence, this doesn't happen. It's only happened a couple times in the history of our judiciary in Wisconsin.
Right. And then it happens twice in one case.
And it happens twice with this case. But the last time they actually gave a deadline, so we didn't have this issue where there was confusion about it. So that's why it was very unclear. And I kind of was kicking myself because I went back to read the decision in the CD issue, and that's when it kind of popped in my head. I was like, oh, I know what I screwed up. Is that since they retain jurisdiction, which I did know, but it's just that it wasn't occurring to me that would basically be their rules would supersede what would normally be the rules for the circuit court.
Right. So, right. Got it. So now that we know that, now we've determined that. So moving forward here, what does it essentially look like? Like, is there any road signs to look for here?
Well, right now, I mean, Kathleen is going to be, and I can't guarantee it, but I would say that I would find it hard to believe it wouldn't happen. She is probably going to file a motion soon with the Court of Appeals, asking them to set a deadline.
Right.
Because this is pretty ridiculous at this point, how long it's taking. This is one issue, one claim that she has to make a decision on. She didn't take this long to decide the entire petition, beginning with its 75 claims on it.
Right.
She didn't take that much time. And considering the fact that I'm fairly certain this is a denial, and she's going to use a denial based on procedural grounds, and her opinion will probably be less than 10 pages again, there's no reason why she should take this much time to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's almost inevitable that Kathleen is going to have to file a motion with the court saying, you know, can you please set a deadline? Now, she couldn't file a motion with the circuit court because you can't tell a judge. Obviously, it's very inappropriate to tell a judge, hey, can you rule already? You can't do that. So under Court of Appeals jurisdiction, they would be the proper forum to present that motion. And considering the fact that I think it's very possible that not setting a date was an oversight, I don't think it would be out of line for her to do that. And it might not have been. It's weird that they would just forget something like that. But it also is a little strange that they didn't set a deadline when they gave every indication that they wanted to quickly resolve this matter.
Right.
I mean, they only
giving her only 14 days.
14 days. Right. When previously they gave her 30 days on the CD issue, and then they wanted a decision in 60 days. This time they're giving her 14 days just suggests that they wanted this to be taken care of and resolved one way or another relatively quickly.
Right.
And the judge is not seeing that way, obviously.
Right. Well, I like KZ's tweet where she said, you know, when it's like she has to, you know, the judge is faced with this dilemma where she has to write this decision denying this obvious infraction. And so it's taken her a little more time to write, you know, a little more time to get that together or everything. I thought that was funny. Man, whether it's true or not is here or there, but I thought it was funny.
Yeah. And I mean, and she's right, because, you know, I know there are people that are holding out hope that it could be that she could affirm it, but I just don't see that. I mean, if she was going to affirm it, she would have made that decision a long time ago to get a hearing.
Right.
You know, judges don't wait this long to order a hearing. You know, they want to get that taken care of. They want to get that on their docket because you can't really schedule anything else, you know, when you know you have this kind of hanging over your head. If she did affirm it, it would be, I mean, okay, good news, but it would be just amazingly inappropriate that you would take that long to just order a hearing, because she doesn't have to do much. You have to do even less when you're going to affirm the order. You know, you have to, it's going to say like, okay, I believe that there's enough here to warrant a hearing. Let's schedule a hearing.
And then it's all going to come into your courtroom with you sitting there, and you're going to know, right?
I mean, so the information you need at the hearing.
Yeah, certainly a lot easier.
Consider a whole lot, you know. So I just don't see how this could be. And obviously, KZ doesn't think so either, or she wouldn't have made that comment or that tweet.
Right.
You know, so
absolutely. Okay, so we're most likely then we're looking for a motion to come from KZ to the Court of Appeals to ask for, you know, expediency, or to, you know, prompt the judge to give a decision. And then what do you think that would look like? What would the Court of Appeals most likely do?
They would probably honor that and set a deadline, because it has been so much time.
And how long, what do you think at this point? It's already been, it's been 90 days, right? It's been over 90 days, hasn't it?
They would probably give 30 days, I would think.
Something like 30? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, okay. I mean, they might even do less if they're annoyed. They might say, you know, we're giving you 14 days, but I would think that they would probably give 30 days at most. I can't imagine they'd give any longer than that.
Yeah. I love it how it's like, it's KZ that's wasting time. It's you know what I mean? It's just like, I couldn't believe it when that came out, but it's like, here we are again, waiting on the state of Wisconsin, not KZ, waiting on the state of Wisconsin once again. It's like, you know, so, you know, I thought that was particularly just galling when I heard that one. I'm like, oh yeah, it's KZ that's hiding all this stuff, holding back ledgers, hiding what they did. You know, it's yeah, KZ made them do all that. Yeah, sure. So, but anyway, so
Yeah, and after they do that, I mean, there's nothing else that can be done. So once Kathleen files her motion, the court would probably rule within, relatively quickly, within a day or two, I would think, setting the deadline, and then it's just wait again until the judge then
makes her decision.
Yeah, rules.
Which is most likely a denial.
Most likely a denial.
And then that's going to just toss then. So then we're going to be on our way back in earnest to the appeals court again, right?
Right.
Where now the appeal will move forward with all of the everything that was in the original motion for post-conviction relief.
Right.
With now the CD issue, and now the destroyed evidence of the bones that were over in the Manitowoc County gravel pit.
Right.
So, and those now all become one thing and part of the appeal, and that appeal will move forward.
Right.
So
then Kathleen is given the 40 days. Once the circuit court judge makes a decision, then Kathleen has 40 days to file her appellant brief. That thing that we've been waiting on for a year and a half. That keeps getting delayed and delayed and delayed. There really shouldn't be any more delays at this point. I hope not. She can file that appellant brief because
I don't know if I can say that. I don't know if the state of Wisconsin can stay out of trouble for that long, but we'll see.
I don't know. I just know that I don't see any point really in putting anything in front of this judge again.
Right.
I really don't see any point.
I got to agree with you on that.
Yeah, now, if it's something that is very important to get on the record, then she would have no choice. But I just don't see that it's just going to keep slowing things down, and the appeal has got to move forward.
Yeah,
it's taking so long, and you've got to get it moving because we're still talking about 40 days for her to file this brief. Then the state gets to file their response, and they will most likely ask for an extension, which would be within their right, because there's been a lot that's been happening.
Yeah.
So they would
get Fallon back from sabbatical.
Yeah. He's not handling the Court of Appeals case, so they don't need him.
Well, that's true. They don't need him anymore. So.
Yeah, they don't need him. So they would file a response. Kathleen would file a reply, which would be 15 days, assuming she doesn't ask for an extension. And then I know Kathleen has said that oral arguments would be scheduled. And I've said this several times in my own videos. Oral arguments at the state level are not given. They are very rare.
Right.
Actually.
They're rare. Right. I've heard that as well.
I gave you the statistics at one time. I think it was twice in the last 3 years have they had oral arguments on a criminal appeal.
Right.
That's it. And with federal court, it's always a thing. It's always part of the procedure. In state court, it's not. So even though Kathleen said they'll schedule oral arguments, that's not a guarantee.
Right.
I think there's a lot of issues that need to be discussed. So it's possible this might be the one, this year that they decide to grant. You never know.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff, I mean, it's not just a little bit of stuff that she's talking about. I mean, it's certainly a night, becoming the mountain. She kind of alludes to. So
it's really up to the Court of Appeals because they are going to read these briefs first. Mm-hmm. Before they decide whether there will be oral arguments. And if they read the briefs and just decide on the briefs alone that there needs to be an evidentiary hearing, then they're not going to bother with oral arguments.
Uh-huh.
Because, but just because they don't bother with oral arguments doesn't mean that it's going to be a win. It's just that it's not a very common thing to do to begin with. But that if they don't have oral arguments, that's not an indicator of how they're going to rule either way.
Doesn't mean either way, right? Yeah, exactly.
Right. It doesn't mean anything. It just means they have enough information to be able to make a decision. We just won't know what that decision is until they make it. And it takes an average about 9 months for them to make a decision.
Right.
That's why we're talking about at least another year.
Right.
Before the appeal has concluded.
And then let's hypothetically say that gets denied. Mm-hmm. Right. She's then going to go she's going to try and go to the Supreme Court, Wisconsin Supreme Court, right?
Which is very little chance of them hearing the case.
Yeah, exactly. Snowball's chance in hell is
exactly.
And then at that point, I mean, I know in MAM2, I heard her say, you're better off going back on 15 successive petitions in in the circuit court or whatever, it's the district court or whatever, in the state court or whatever. But I mean, is that really going to be an option?
It's going to be depend on what she's working on. We know that her investigation is kind of always ongoing. Sure. It's going to depend on
it would ever depend on new evidence.
If she has additional information. I don't think Steve has a chance on habeas review. I just don't. I don't think he has.
You may be right, but I mean, really,
I mean, if Brendan didn't going to win on habeas review, Steve is never going to win on habeas review.
Right. Well, I'm not saying he would win, but I don't know. I'm looking at it as she just took. Who did she just take? She just took somebody to habeas.
Yeah, Melissa Kalasinski's
There
case.
you go. She took Melissa Kalasinski.
Right after she said in MAM that she wouldn't do that.
Exactly, right? That's what I'm getting at. That was what I was basically getting at. So, yeah.
Because I was like, when I was watching that, I hope that, because I already knew she was going to file that with Melissa's case. And when I saw MAM too, I was just like, I really hope her parents aren't watching right now, because she's basically saying in the documentary that you have no prayer of winning on habeas review.
Right.
Yeah, I hope they're not. But she is right. I mean, it is very hard to win on habeas.
It's hard to win, obviously. That's what Brendan's case taught me. AEDPA is a turd.
Yeah, it is.
Oh my God. Holy crud. What the hell was our Congress thinking when they passed that freaking thing? I mean, it's one thing to deprive, it's one thing for me to deal with murderers and really just, and terrorists, people that are hurting massive amounts of people, whatever. It's one thing to limit it there. And all that, but to then make this stupid rule apply to every single citizen of the United States because there's a few bad apples in the world that are committing terrorist acts? Are you flipping kidding me?
Well, this was more. I mean, it's only attached to that bill because it was raised at the same time. It really has nothing to do, really nothing to do with terrorism. They did it because of the Timothy McVeigh thing, but that really wasn't the point. The point was at the time.
But it helped get people.
An excessive amount of prisoners were being granted habeas review, and we're actually winning on habeas cases, and that caused a lot of problems between the federal courts and the state courts. Yeah. And so that's why I was like, okay, well, we're going to limit the power then of the federal judiciary over the state judiciary, but it had unforeseen consequences. It went too far. It went too much in the other direction. It went
too much.
Too many people being granted relief on habeas review to nobody being granted relief on habeas review.
Yeah, I mean.
And the problem is that I don't see it ever being amended.
Well, you're right. It would be very difficult at this point.
Yeah, because the states love it. States love EDPA.
Oh, the states, yeah, absolutely, they would, wouldn't they?
Yeah, it's only the defense attorneys.
Oh, good. Big Brother can't put his nose in our business and make us act right. Let's just, let's draw on the walls.
The state absolutely does not want the federal courts to be able to overrule them.
Right.
So I mean, it would be quite a battle to try to get, your state senators and everything to go, and try to sell that we're going to give up this right. We're going to give up this power that we have back to the federal government. It's just not going to happen.
It's just going to take some more really gross, egregious things that some states do that are going to finally catch some people's attention.
Right.
I really seriously think it's just a matter of once people see some of the stuff that's going down that the states are getting away with because they know they can.
Right.
It may change.
That's a lot of criminal justice reform. It's going to take.
It would take a lot at this point.
There are enough cases that people are going to finally stop pretending, especially, the state agents of the state are going to stop pretending like they don't exist, that wrongful convictions don't exist, that false confessions don't exist. They are living in a vacuum where they're trying to sell this to people, but now the public is becoming more aware of the truth.
Yeah.
And
that's it. True crime is truly becoming, a huge deal. Right. Lots of people are into it,
And before it was just watching shows like 2020, Dateline, or whatever, that would explore different cases. Right. But now you have shows that are specifically, or documentaries that are specifically talking about wrongful convictions, obviously Making a Murderer being one. And then When They See Us was just huge. That's another huge one talking about wrongful conviction. Yep. So, and you have even like Dream Killer, which not as many people probably saw, but now there are actual documentaries specifically aimed towards the problem of wrongful convictions.
Well, like Exhibit A, confession tapes.
Right.
There's a lot of good stuff out there. And like I said, it's all being fueled because they know there's an audience.
Right.
You know, I mean, they know Netflix is buying these shows because, oh yeah, there's people out there that watch it. You know, so
and unfortunately, you can't change that. I always say the good old boys club, which might not be fair, but whatever mentality that, you know, they have to get into the century. They have to move forward. They have to start understanding the social science behind this. And that's not going to be easy. We've talked about this before. We're going to have to wait till the next generation takes over. And then we'll start seeing those changes, I think.
Although I'm sure you're depressing some people with that, but I think you may be right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care. I mean, I say the next generation is so much more better trained. They're better educated, and they are more socially aware. You know, our next generation is the most socially aware probably generation that we've had, and so they're not gonna be sticking their head in the sand. They're gonna know these things exist. They're gonna, you know, so I think that's when we'll start seeing a shift. But you know,
is that what it is right now?
Yeah.
Too many people. We just have too many people that grew up in the era before social media, and they're just all too willing to go in their caves or put their heads in the ground. Is that what we're dealing with at the moment?
Yeah, you buy the company line.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, at some point they're gonna have to stop. They're gonna get to a point where they can no longer, like prosecutors can no longer sell the line that, oh, we don't care about conviction rates. We only care about the truth. When we're learning more and more about the fact that, yeah, you care about conviction rates. Right. There's behind doors deals of incentives and things like that to get convictions, and more of that stuff is coming out now.
Not to say that there aren't ethical and proper prosecutors out there, because there are, and you know, and when I see one that particularly impresses me, I usually cover him. A guy named James Farron, from I think it was Dateline or something like that. It was the Pink Gun mystery.
Okay.
Anyway, it was an interesting thing, but he was originally going after the wife. There was a big thing where there was a man or a wife and a husband that were married and everything. They had guns. The husband's ex-wife ended up dead. He was originally going after the wife for it, and he really thought he had the right person. He truly did, until her son, who she was with that day when this all went down, his cell phone data came back, and he had his Wi-Fi turned on that day, so his phone was pinging every business as they were driving down like the main street in town. And so he looked at that and he just went, you know what? I have the wrong person. And that's it. He was like, I have the wrong person here. He stopped it all. He let her loose. He took a bunch of heat for it. He took a buttload of heat for letting her out. And then he went and he got the husband and nailed him.
Right.
I love it. I was impressed, and I covered that.
There are good cops, there are good judges, there are good prosecutors. This is definitely not an absolute. They're not all, you know, like this. So there are good ones. Unfortunately, the stories about the bad ones always seem to be, you know, they're newsworthy, whereas the stories about the good ones just aren't as much, which is unfortunate. But
the bad ones cause a lot more damage, that's for sure.
Right, that's why.
It's like I say, like with a wrongful conviction, I mean, you have to think about it. People get upset about a regular case where the victim's family is, you know, the victims, and that's sad. Think about a wrongful conviction. I mean, you have the victim's family walks away happy, or well, with what they think is closure.
Yeah, right.
When they don't even know that they haven't received it. That's tragic enough on its own. But then you have the wrongfully convicted man and his family and all the tragedy that that's causing. And then if this thing gets set to rights one day, there's all the money of the taxpayers that gets wasted setting it right. Even if there's no payout to the actual wrongfully convicted man, there's all the time spent in court fighting it over and over and everything for 15 years and whatever. All that taxpayer money that's just going down the tubes, you know. And it's just like, I mean, that's why a wrongful conviction is a truly horrific thing. And I truly think people need to realize that. As much as people want to feel safe and they just want to believe everybody's guilty because they feel that that's just the safe bet. But no, we need to be better than that. We need to be a little more conscientious than that.
I'm just going through the chat and I'm trying to see what questions there have been. Rubber Ducky was asking, can the judge request an extension in time if the court set a deadline and the judge doesn't want to answer? technically, yes, she could, but she wouldn't dare.
Yeah.
That would be.
And if she did, I don't know she'd get it. Right?
Yeah.
They might just say, nope, hurry up.
They would probably, if she tried, I should say, if she tried to request it, it would probably be denied. I can't see that they would allow her to drag this out any further. But anything can happen. And, I've said before that things that I didn't think were going to happen will have happened. So, I never say anything 100% because there's so many twists and turns with this case and even with procedure that, you can't say anything for sure, but I just don't think she would do that.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Currently, the system is. Yeah. So let me see. Let's see if there's anything here. This is bad. Yeah, it seems like it's mostly a bunch of jokes here. It is going to take the public becoming aware, absolutely. And that's why I say we're moving towards it. I mean, with the growth of the true crime genre, it's kind of inevitable in my mind.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I said that's what's going to take to change things. It's slow. Change anything takes time.
Right.
But I think what we're seeing now in this movement is basically the first step. But it's still going to take time to actually see the result of that.
Sure.
But we will.
We're going to have to see more of this younger.
We don't know, but
more of this younger generation come up and start to take their roles in the world, and we might start seeing a bit of a shift.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. So hopefully not. Hopefully we'll get to see it in our lifetime.
That's why I just said, I was like, yeah, I don't know if I will see it, but maybe, hopefully. But the younger generation definitely will, and even that's not going to change everything. It's going to take, it took a long time for us to get to this place.
Yeah.
It's going to take a bit of time to undo a lot of it.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think we're going in the right direction. It's just slow. We want to see results now. We want to see change now, and it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Look how long it takes even for a law to become a law. It can take years for that to happen.
Yeah.
So, so any major changes are going to take time, but we'll get there. I think that we're moving in a positive direction, even though it doesn't always seem like it.
Yeah. And it really, to my mind, it takes people just sitting down and being able to discuss the problems. I mean, even if you disagree about the problems, what they are, how to handle them, whatever. I mean, I still think that it's important for people to be tolerant and be able to discuss, the important issues. You never want to get stuck in your bubble and just toeing the line, as it were, of the little bubble that you live in. Right. For me, it's I want to interact with the other bubble. I want to interact with the people in the other bubble because I want to know what they're thinking. It's important to me. And I think it informs me. It makes me stronger in my opinions. And I encourage everybody to think about things that way. And if we all took that type of an attitude, it would hopefully bleed outward from the way we deal with true crime to maybe into other aspects of social interaction that we have as human beings. So, but yeah, definitely, it's good to sit down. It's good to be able to talk about these things. And I like the way Dean said it. He was being interviewed, Dean Strang, by this one girl on the news one time, and she was like, "Oh," and she's asking, he's saying, "Well, we got to change this. We got to do this. And we got to do that." And she looks at him and she's like, "Oh, how do we do that?" And he just looks at her and he goes, "We talk about it." So I agree with that 100%. And I know that's definitely something helpful. So let's see here. But are the delays worth it? Who really benefits? It's not about delays. I don't know what it means.
Yeah, it just hurts. It hurts Steve. That's it.
Yeah, it certainly. Well, yeah, certainly. He seems to be getting a little antsy.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, certainly every delay.
His due process, I guess you could say, to this appeal. So it's just really only hurts Steve. Nobody else really cares. The state doesn't care. They let him drag it out as long as they want. Steve's where they want him to be.
Right.
And as long as this gets dragged out, he's not going anywhere. So.
And they know they got AEDPA that's going to keep that ball in their court, right,
Yeah.
where they can deal with it. So it's like, hey, there you go. So that's why we don't like AEDPA, folks. Well, maybe I could like it, but not the way it is right now.
Yeah, let's see what's going on with Brendan's case at the moment. Brendan's case is in a holding pattern. They have the right to file a state petition of post-conviction relief, which is exactly what Steve is doing right now. Brendan has never filed one before, so that gives him a little bit better chance because he is not procedurally barred from presenting some of these issues.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've talked about clemency and those things. Well, that's not a possibility now.
Right.
Governor Evers has shut that down. He is going to be offering pardons, but he is not going to be offering sentence commutations, which is what Brendan would fall under that particular form of clemency. And so that was bad news. Hi, Linda. Thanks. Miss you too. So that was bad news. The fact that I know that even Brendan had his hopes up that Governor Evers would, do something. And the fact that he has specifically said he will not consider sentence commutations was kind of a big blow to him.
Yeah.
So that is really off the table for right now. So that means that a state petition of post-conviction relief is his only opportunity right now. His lawyers have been working on it. They do keep in touch with Kathleen. They share information. I don't know when they're planning on filing, though.
Yeah.
Did they, if they're planning on waiting to see if there's what resolution there is to Steve's case?
Yeah.
Or if they're going to wait just for this part of the appeal to be, or if we're waiting for this decision, and then once it's in the Court of Appeals, if they're going to then try to file something. I really don't know, because it's a long wait for Brendan to have to wait another year just to file, just because he wants to see what's going to happen.
You don't want to file too soon and then have KZ dig up something, and you know what I mean? And then you can't easily get it to be part of the appeal at that point, right? So, I mean,
and the other important thing is that even if the Court of Appeals, this is what's so maddening about this, even if the Court of Appeals rules in Steve's favor, they're only ruling on an evidentiary hearing. They're not ruling on whether or not he's going to be released.
Taking us a little bit further.
Yeah, so if Steve wins, all it does is send it back to the circuit court with then KZ can get a new judge. That's the good news.
Right.
But Steve can still lose at that point, and then they would have to appeal that decision, and we start this whole appellate process over again.
Right. Okay.
So, we're talking years before there's a resolution to this, one way or the other.
I mean, right. Yeah. Well, we all know the average time to write a wrongful conviction has been about 15 years.
Right.
So
now, obviously, if they deny Steve this time, well, then it won't take years because that'll be it. But then Kathleen will have to start over. She's not going to just give up.
Right.
So that's the question. At what point do Brendan's lawyers say, okay, we can't wait any longer. We need to get our case moving forward. We can't keep waiting, considering that it could still be years before Steve's has any resolution just to this current appeal.
Right.
This current, petition.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, yeah, I know. I've from the beginning, I've always pretty much got it that this wasn't going to be like an overnight thing. I've personally, just because I was paying attention, looking at other wrongful convictions, just seeing, these things don't get resolved quickly. But still, there's just, I don't know, I'm still have this just huge passion. I guess mainly what it pisses me off, I think what really stoked me up and got me going on this was really what happened to Brendan. As much as I loathe what happened to Stephen, I think the thing that finally sprung me from the little enclosed off little world I was in prior to MAM was thinking about Brendan, the 16-year-old kid who had his entire life taken away from him, pretty much. It didn't sit well with me. I was at work the next 3-4 days after I watched it, and it was just like I couldn't get it off my mind. It's to think about that our states could think that it's okay to do something to kids that vulnerable, to do that kind of stuff. I mean, if they're willing to do that to Brendan, and all the courts are willing to sign off that that's okay, that's just disturbing. I mean, that was what really shocked me and got me like going, what the hell? You know, for me personally. But also, equally so, you know, everything that went on in '85 with Steve, and then we have a piss poor investigation in 2005, and suddenly we're convicting him again. So there's the aspect of you've wrongfully convicted a man once, and then you run a shit investigation and convict him again, and you expect people to believe in that, or you expect people to have faith in that investigation when it looks like you're just going through the motions and throwing a man back in jail. I don't know. So it all resonated with me, but I gotta say the innocence of youth with Brendan really irked me. You know, what is it about the case that really irked you the most?
Well, with Brendan, I think that it strikes people a lot more because, yes, his age, obviously, how he was taken advantage of, but there was absolutely no evidence against Brendan. That's what's even more frustrating. There was nothing against Brendan. They had evidence against Steve. Now, granted, questionable, you know, like we believe that a lot of problems with that, but at least they did have evidence against Steve.
Right.
They had none against Brendan, nothing. And then when it was worse, when he confessed, and that confession matched nothing in evidence. Right. So that's the point where it should have told them, okay, we got a problem here because everything this kid is saying, like our evidence does not match that.
Yeah.
You know, and the
fact
that
it does in the parts that they fed him, that they got him to regurgitate, right? But not in the other peripheral areas, right?
Right. So I think that's what strikes people more about Brendan's case. Plus, you have a lot of people who have teenagers, specifically teenage boys, and even more specifically teenage boys that have similar, issues that Brendan had, the cognitive issues that Brendan had, and they see their own kids in this. Yeah. And that is where I think that it just hits so many people.
That's the way I hit my boss. He was watching that Return to Manitowoc, that Dateline or whatever, and he watched it, and he called me right after it was done. He's like, "Oh," he just goes, "What they did to that kid was wrong." That's just from watching Return to Manitowoc. Right. He was like, my boss, when after he watched it, he called me up, and he's just like, and he goes, I watched that. He goes, and I just imagine, he said his own son's name. I just imagined him sitting there and those officers doing that, and it's like I just wanted to rip their heads off. You know, he was like getting pretty, riled up by it. I was like, good for you, because this is the type of guy who's like, he like thinks the cops can do no wrong. They walk on water, for him. So to see him take that negative attitude and be that kind of upset was actually pretty, amazing to see. So,
right.
That's what happens, right?
Right.
When we think about our kids, right? Anyway.
And I was going to mention something. I'm trying to find the exact article. It just happened today. They finally settled the case in Wisconsin or it may not have just happened today, but it happened recently, with Charlie Stinson. And it was the biggest payout from Wisconsin for a wrongful conviction ever. Oh, and I believe, I'm trying to find it now. I believe it was $17 million. Oof. And it's the most and that was a settlement. But what's terrifying about this is that it took 10 years. 10 years of litigation, and then they finally went to trial, and then it was settled prior to closing arguments. But 10 years to get to the trial. That's when was this? Okay, this was I think it was yesterday. Okay, yesterday. Yeah. Based on faulty bite mark evidence. So he was given. Oh no! Wait! It's not that much. Hold on. Mm-hmm. 7.5 million, and they're saying that's the biggest. That seems wrong. Hold on.
It seems smaller.
Yeah, but you never know.
Well, Wisconsin doesn't let a whole lot of people out. So
so that's the thing. It might actually be correct that is the largest, but that seems kind of low. But I don't remember any that are larger. So I guess there was another one not long ago. I'm trying to look through this article quick to see. Oh yeah, that is because the other one I was thinking of was the Shantae Ott case, and that was 6.5 million they paid out. Mm. So yeah, 7.5 million, and he was imprisoned for 24 years. He was wrongfully incarcerated for 24 years. Yeah. Oh, it's Robert Stinson. I said Charlie. That's confused that, but Robert Stinson. And so for 24 years, and they said 10 years, because I always told people that with Steve's case, and why I think it's funny sometimes that some of these gold diggers are after Steve. It's like they do not get how long it's going to be before Steve sees any wrongful conviction money, even if he does get out. Is because they do not just hand this over. They fight and fight. Right. And even I just had my jaw dropped at 10 years of litigation. And they basically did everything they could to avoid this. And once they could see the trial was not going their way, then they finally agreed to settle.
Right.
But you can see what they're doing. They're trying to hopefully say that this guy's going to give up. He's going to, his lawyers are done. They're not going to spend 10 years of their life on this case.
And money, right? Because money runs out, right? The state has unlimited resources.
And you know how much money the state had to pay to do this, to keep dragging this out this long? How much money it cost them? If they would have just settled to begin with, it cost them millions of dollars to drag this out for as long as they did.
Yeah.
But that's how unwilling
all the money that gets wasted litigating this stuff.
Right. Jeez. That's how unwilling they are to own up to their mistakes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Justice, what are you doing, puppy?
Let's see here. Is there any questions?
Yeah, I'm just looking through, but I have Justice in my way. I can't see. Come on, puppy. She has an ear infection, so she's even more needy than usual.
Oh, poor puppy.
My poor puppy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know.
Thought Wisconsin changed the law after Stephen Avery. Well, Fallon, are you referring to the amount of money that they give a person who is found to be wrongfully convicted? Yeah. I believe they did change that.
They didn't.
They didn't? So it's still whatever it was back in 18-something or other?
That was part of the Avery bill. And once Steve went back to prison, they removed that part from the Avery bill.
Oh.
And it went through without that. And so right now, the wrongful conviction compensation is still $25,000. And it still caps out. I mean, yeah, it still caps out at, what is it, 50, what is it? Oh, God. No, I'm sorry. It's like $2,500. And I think it caps out at 50,000 or something like that. I'm going to have to look because I'm drawing a blank right now.
I thought it was something like, 25,000, I thought is what it was. It was enough, 30,000. It was enough to make Stephen go, yeah, F you.
Right. That's why was it like 5,000 a year? It was something like it was a certain amount per year that you served or that you were in prison, but then it caps out at $50,000. At a certain
point, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was something like that. I've just drawn a blank on exactly the wording now, but this, what we were just talking about with Robert Stinson, is he was given $115,000 in wrongful conviction compensation by the state. Now the state parole board, or not the state, the compensation board, they can go higher than the 50,000, and that's what they did with Steve. They were going to pay him. God, again, why am I drawing blanks on these?
400,000.
No, they weren't going to pay him that much. They were going to pay him like 100 and some thousand. They were going to pay him.
110 or something. I think I heard about that.
To appeal to the compensation board, they will give you higher than the 50,000, but it's still, with Steve, they essentially were only going to pay him that was going to include like lawyers' fees and things like that. that's essentially why they were going to give him more money. Is 5K up to 25,000? Is that what it is, Zelma? Okay, I thought it was up to 50,000, but I guess I'm wrong.
I remember it was ridiculously low because it's like it's from a law that's on the books back in like 18
and
that is something or other.
Still the law. It is still the law. Maybe that's what I was thinking with the 5. I was thinking of 5 a year for 5 years essentially. Right. But I mean, I can't believe I can't remember this. If you people knew, like my brain is just mush now. Like lately, I can't remember anything. So it seems like such a basic thing that I should remember, and yet I'm not remembering it. But with Stinson, they agreed to pay, the state compensation board paid him $115,000. If you file a federal civil rights lawsuit, which is what Stinson did, and that's where he's getting this $7.5 million, you have to pay back that money to the compensation board.
Oh, really? Oh, if you file the civil rights case? Oh,
yes.
Really? Oh, that's interesting.
So whatever Steve was given or was supposed to get from the state compensation board would have had to have been paid back once he got his settlement. Oh, okay. Now, he never got that money, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, but you can't have both. You can't double dip, as they say. You can't get payment from the state and then from the federal government as well. You have to, it's like one or the other. That's it.
Well, the money doesn't actually come from the federal government though, right? It actually, they just make a judgment.
Yeah, you're making a federal civil rights claim, but the parties responsible are still going to be state.
The state, and they're going to still be paying it, right? Yeah. So, okay, right. Just wanted to clear that up.
And that's why it's saying like you can't get it from both. You can't sue them on a federal level and then get money from the state. You can only have one or the other, and so you have to pay that money back.
Right. This is also
the law was not changed, unfortunately. You're like, now that I'm thinking about it, you're right. It was 25,000. So that was removed from the Avery bill as soon as Steve was convicted again. It's like Steve getting convicted again didn't change that was a BS amount to pay those who have been wrongfully convicted.
Right. That was a ridiculously low amount. But they're like, no, that's cool. We'll just keep spitting in the wrongfully convicted faces. Nobody will care.
But until you have another high-profile exoneration that some politician wants to ride the coattails of,
right.
Then, like that's not going to change. It's going to have to go through this again, but somebody like Steve is going to have to get exonerated again and then to try to amend that law. They just don't care. They don't care otherwise.
Yeah, well, I mean, and trust me, if it ends up being Steve, that's going to be the thing that's going to really nail it home, isn't it? Really, I mean, if it ends up he's the first person to be wrongfully convicted twice, holy crud, he is going to be the talk of the town, the talk of the nation, at least for a month. In my mind.
Wait, we have to interrupt you, Scott Farish. What is your issue? I'm sorry, but it's like Steve agreed to a settlement. Yeah, he did. He agreed to settle the federal case, but prior to that, the state compensation board had agreed to pay him a certain amount, but he never got that money. So you don't have to believe a word I'm saying because that's actually facts. So my facts are very straight. Thank you very much.
I was just ignoring Scott. He seems like he's a little uppity today.
I know he was fine a second ago, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna interrupt you. Sorry there, Erekose, but I'm gonna cover that real quick. And no, Steve did not get that money. And anybody that thinks about the fact that Buting said something about there was a check for $400,000 waiting for Steve, that is absolutely untrue. That did not happen. That was not waiting for Steve. That was not. I don't know where he came up with that. But that was not a thing, and that confused a lot of people because they were like, "Where was that? What was that money?" And so we had to go through and you can actually find the state compensation board's minutes where they list exactly how much money they're going to pay Steve, and they kind of spell it out like based on attorney fees plus the $25,000 he was entitled to, and I think they were going to give him like maybe it was only like $70,000 or something like that.
Yeah. I know Steve was asking for $1.1 million.
Yes.
And if they gave him that, he would just be done.
Right.
But then when they decided not to give him that, that's when he filed his lawsuit.
And I have those minutes somewhere.
Yeah.
The 10,000 documents I have stored.
Well, yeah, we'll have to turn those up at some point.
I need to organize that stuff at one point. So yeah, so I don't mean to get like all snippy or anything, but yeah, I don't really like it when people say like you don't know what you're talking about. I might not remember the exact amounts.
Right.
But I do know what I'm talking about because I had to ask Steve myself about that $400,000 that Buting was talking about because everyone was confused about that. And Steve's like, I don't know what he's talking about. I'm like, well, if you don't, then I don't feel bad that none of us know what he's talking about. And that's what Steve said. He said, no, the state compensation board agreed to pay this amount. And then he never got that check. Oh, wait, actually, okay, wait, no, I'm going back now. He actually did get that money. He did get that state money.
We had to get some, right? Because he bought that truck.
He bought the truck with it. Yeah, that's what made me just think of it. It's like he bought the truck with that state money. So he actually did get that check. Now, whether he had
it was like 25,000 or whatever, that right. Really little amount, right?
Yeah. After his attorney's fees and everything, what he got was enough to buy his truck.
Yeah,
that's where that money went. So yeah, see, so sometimes like it's like okay, I'll remember things as I go.
Yeah,
but I don't know if he had to pay that money back, as is the rules once he's settled. But I don't think so.
I think really that the way I understood it, that was just like an automatic given to wrongfully convicted people. I mean. And it's a pittance because it was the law that was made back in 18 frickin' whatever. And, so it's so far out of date, it's ridiculous.
Right. You have to apply for it, but you have to make an appeal then if you want more than that. And then you have to ask specifically you have to go and make an appeal and say I want this much money and this is why. And then they'll say, well, this is what we're going to give you. And the other part of the law that has not changed is that you will not get any wrongful conviction money if you play a part in your own incarceration. So since Brendan confessed, Brendan is not entitled to any state compensation when he's released because he confessed, and that confession has been ruled as being voluntary.
Right. Okay. Let's see. Well, Linda's asking me to go and ask more of Scott Farish's questions. So let me see here. If he actually has any of them. Because all I'm seeing are snippy comments so far. Show me. I don't see any questions, Linda.
Yeah, Alice is asking about that Steve had I just lost it. It scrolled off my screen. Hold on a second. That she heard something about Steve signing his settlement over to his attorney to keep the wrongful death suit filed by the Hallbox. He did have to give all the money to his attorneys. He had to give $160,000, I think, to his previous attorneys, and then he had to give $240 that he had to give then to Buting and Strang.
Oh, $400,000.
Yeah, for his defense. Again, if I got the numbers confused, whatever, don't shoot me. It's just that, but a portion was given to his lawyers that represented him in the wrongful death suit, and then the rest was given to Buting and Strang. He didn't get to keep any of that.
Ma'am said he settled for $148K to pay Dongle Deuce lawyers for poorly represented. Okay, so as we were just saying, Scott, the $140,000 would have been paid to not Dean and Jerry, his other lawyers that were handling his civil suit.
And even that got more confusing. Not that I want to confuse the issue more, right. But there was actually an issue with his previous attorney and another set of attorneys, and they were basically fighting over this money. So I think it got split between another law firm too, and to a certain extent. Right. Steve essentially retained one law firm and then went and retained another.
Right.
So that caused a bunch of problems. So
to answer the question about the renaming of the Avery bill, if that's what Scott's asking about, what we talked about is that obviously the Avery bill got renamed, Avery's name got taken off of it. But what Tracie was just saying is that the bit that was in there that was going to guarantee wrongfully convicted people in Wisconsin to be able to get a little more money, to be entitled to a little bit more money for their wrongful conviction, that part got removed after Steve got arrested. So that little bit got removed out of there. So now everybody's still on the 1830 whatever law, where you get 25 grand. You'd be in there for 20 years and you probably still get 25 grand or 20, that you'd probably still get the same thing. That part of the Avery bill was removed. That's something we covered here. So I hope that answers the question that's being asked here. Scott wanted the link to the renaming of the Avery bill thing, I think.
I actually found it, believe it or not. I found the claims board minutes. Okay, so Stephen Avery was asking for 1.135991. So 1.1 million, a little over 1.1 million is what Steve was asking for.
He wants the link.
Of this?
Boy, you people are pushy. Yeah, he wants the link. He wants to be able to read it himself, he's saying, I guess.
Okay, wait, hold on. The claimant does not believe that the statutory maximum of $25,000 allowed under statute is sufficient compensation for the 18 years he wrongfully spent in prison. When the claimant entered prison, he was 23 years old and working as an automobile mechanic. The claimant is now 42 years old and has lost more than 18 years of earned income, Social Security earnings history, and retirement savings. The claimant has consulted with vocational experts who estimate his lost wages at $799,000, his lost Social Security contributions at $28,300, and his lost retirement earnings at $79,000. In addition, the claimant lost the ability to advance his vocation, including the opportunity to become a partner with his brothers in their family business. The value of the lost opportunity to advance his vocation is estimated at $190,000. Based on the calculations and analysis performed by the experts consulted by the claimant, he estimates his total financial losses at little over $1,097,000. So then he requests that the claims board provide him with immediate relief by granting him the maximum statutory compensation of $25,000, and that the board then requests an additional $1,072,000 from the state legislature to compensate him for his remaining financial losses. Okay, so then there's more then they go on about the attorney's fees. And then it says that the board is constrained by the statute to a maximum of $25,000 plus attorney's fees. The board therefore concludes the claim should be paid in the amount of $25,000 plus attorney fees in the amount of $23,791.61 for a total award of $48,791.61.
Right.
The board further concludes under authority of state statute that payment should be made from the claims board appropriation and whatever. Okay. The board declines at this time to recommend additional payment to the legislature because a legislative committee is presently considering a range of issues concerning innocent convicts. So they're referring to the Avery bill there.
Right. That's the Avery bill. So that's separate. So, okay. Linda, to address your question, what was the settlement Stephen received? The only thing Stephen received well, I guess you could say two, but I would argue he never received the $400,000. Semantics.
No, the only money that Steve
what he did receive was he received $25,000 when he was released. Well, he didn't receive the full $25,000. Some of it went to lawyers' fees.
Well, he did. He did get the full $25,000 because the lawyers' fees were $23,000. So he got $48,791.
Oh, okay.
That's what Steve was given, but the $25,000 he did receive, and that's what he used to buy his truck.
There you go. Okay, so there we go.
$23,000 went to his attorneys.
So so the total was $48,000 and change.
Yep, $791.
Attorneys got 23, right? 23,000, right?
The attorneys were $23,791.61.
25,000 for Steve.
I will post the link. Let me make it shareable, and I will post the link in the chat right this second.
Right on.
Read it for yourself. There you go.
Talking post-murder arrest. Okay, so you're talking about the settlement, Scott. Okay, so the settlement was $400,000. That's what it was settled for. And as Tracie as we have now explained twice, okay, going on third time now, $140,000 was given to Stephen's original attorneys who were handling his civil rights case. for settling it, whatever you want to do, whatever. Their lawyers' fees. They received $140,000 for the work they did on his case. The other $240 was signed over to Dean and Jerry, and they used that to defend Stephen. So that's $240, plus or whatever it is, $250 or $150, whatever. But you put those together, and you come up to about $400,000. That's where it is. That's where it went. So I hope that answers the question. Buting got $25K. How do you know Buting got $25K? Where does that come from? Oh, brother. And by the way, that brings me to the second part of this. Scott Ferris, she say, and Buting was a plant for Fallon who are his bud. Wait, dude, it's Strang and Fallon that are buds. From what I understand, they know each other and they actually kind of hang out sometimes, apparently, or they have some kind of friendship, apparently. I've never heard that about Jerry. How about you? I mean, no. I'm sure they meet, and I'm sure they're nice to each other.
Yeah, all lawyers all cross paths many times over and over again. So, I mean, that's not unusual for lawyers on both sides to cross paths and even be friendly with each other. That is not even remotely weird.
Well, I've heard that String and Fallon are actually like I've heard it. I've heard that they're actually like friends or whatever. I've just never.
Yeah, I don't think Buting is.
I've never heard it about Jerry. Yeah. So yeah. All right. Well. Okay. Well, I think we've thoroughly covered this subject. What do you think? I hope we've cleared up a lot of people's questions and about this, and particularly with, how long we have to wait for a decision from Judge Angie. I know I was really getting a lot of questions about that, so I figured it was, good to get Tracie on and really try to clear this up as best as possible. So I hope we've cleared some of that up. I hope we've cleared up some other things here, talking about some of the other things that we've talked about here and the settlements and the other cases, what'd you say? What was the name of the one you were talking about?
Which one?
The guy that just got the $7 million.
Robert Lee Stinson.
There you go, Stinson. So obviously talking about these wrongful convictions. And
I'll put a link to that article if anybody wants to read it.
There you go. Check out the links to the articles. Let me see. I don't even see your comment. Let's see. It's weird. You left it in the live chat or in the comments?
I'll put in the comments on the live chat.
The only reason I'm wondering, I don't see your name.
Oh, you know what? I wonder if it might not, the admins might have to approve it first. Because I'm not an admin, and so sometimes you can't post links unless the admins allow it.
Or
so I don't know if either thing was showing up.
Didn't I make you a moderator?
No, I'm not a mod, so that could be why.
Let's see if I can add you.
I'll send them both to Linda. I'm going to send them both to you really quick on Messenger.
Yeah, but we want to post it in there too. So let me see if I can. Well, make a comment. Just make a regular comment so I can promote you.
Okay.
There we go. Promote me. All right, there you go. You should be able to post a link now.
Okay, so this is the one. Yep.
All right.
And then let me post the other one again because I don't know if that went through, the one to the compensation board.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Of course, I already closed it. I've got to do it again.
So,
where was it? State? No, that's not the one. I can't find it again, of course. Let me see if this is it.
Gentlemen's
agreement. No, that's not it. I'll get to it. I found it before, so I'll find it again.
Teresa, what are your question marks for? Give me more than a question mark. Here's something I can work with.
How did I find it once and all of a sudden I can't find it?
And another question mark. Okay, never mind. You're not even taking it seriously, so all right. All right. Well, did you find your other link yet? Or you're still searching?
No, I found it faster the first time, and now that I know it's there, I can't find it all of a sudden.
Isn't it always the way?
Yeah, I was like, I just found this, and now I can't find it again.
You and Murphy tight like that too?
Well, you know what? I can grab it out of the. I think I can probably grab it out of the.
Grab it out of your history.
I can't believe I can't find it. Oh, this is so typical. Let me grab it out of the chat. I think I can scroll back in the chat and probably find it.
Yeah, Zelma, I saw that gentleman's agreement, but I didn't. I guess I'm not following what it means. All right, well.
Okay, hopefully this is it.
What's up with the gentleman's agreement? Is that what you're saying, Teresa?
Yeah, Scott, I have an accounting degree as well, which is why it's so frustrating to me that my brain has gone bye-bye. And I can't remember things.
I'm sorry, Teresa, that I am not exactly sure what you're referring to. I've not heard, I can't recall listening to Rubber Ducky talk about that. So I'm not exactly entirely certain what you're referring to. Sorry. I will try and go over and check out Rubber Ducky's channel and see what the heck it is you're talking about as soon as I can. Oh, you mean okay, so you mean the stipulation agreement? Is that what you're referring to? Are you referring to the stipulation agreement?
Between Buting and Kratz or between Strang and Kratz? I don't know what you're talking about.
I know that I figured that was Strang and Kratz, really.
Yeah, they had that stipulation about the computer was between, well, about many things, including the computer. Was between.
All right, well, I'll tell you what. I will get that from Rubber Ducky, and I'll take a look at it. You know. Kratz called it a gentleman's agreement. Well, he would. He wants to think of himself as a gentleman, but, you know.
Yeah, that was a different stipulation agreement. That was pre-trial. Yeah, well, I guess they both were technically. But yeah, that's where they were talking about what could be said about Teresa and what couldn't be said about her, because they didn't want to bring in any of the stuff that made Teresa look bad. But then Dean and Buting also like argued with making her look like a saint as well. So they went back and forth about what could be discussed and what they could do, and that was probably that same agreement.
Right. Right, absolutely. So, all right. Okay, so I think we've now addressed all that. Any other questions that are going to pop up here? Anything, anybody, before we go here? Also, what about the pap smear? What about the pap smear? He's a POS sweaty. Sweaty. That's like the way Travis used to say sweaty balls when he first started coming on my channel from the Saturday Night Live skit. Anyway. All right. Oh, okay. So I think we've addressed all those issues here. Cleared up. I'm sorry we can't put a pinpoint on a time for you guys, but we know probably what it's going to look like here. That probably very soon KZ is going to file some kind of motion with the appeals court, which is going to cause them to light a fire under Judge Suk, which is, and then get her to make her decision. At which point we will have a hearing, or we will be on our way back to the appeals court. So that's where we're at. So I would say maybe what do you think? Maybe over the next couple of weeks, we might see something from KZ?
I would say I mean, maybe as early as next week. I can't imagine she's going to let it go much longer.
Right. So look for it real soon for KZ to file a motion asking them to, prod Judge Suk and get her to make a decision. And then, like I said, we either get an evidentiary hearing which would be nice, or we're going back to the appeals court and we're moving on with now adding on more, more issues to the appeal and letting it move forward, and it's not like there's just a few issues on this appeal. I mean, you guys, we've covered the motion for post-conviction relief here. Well, we started 2 and 3 videos. We still got 2 more, actually. And you've seen what all was in just those 3 videos. And we weren't even showing you everything. We were just trying to hit some of the high points for you. So, there's a lot of issues on this appeal moving forward. And so, we'll have to see where that's going to go. But ultimately, it would be nice if we get the evidentiary hearing in the district court. We'll have to see where it goes. But like I said, look for KZ to file something soon. So you're all welcome. You're all welcome. Thank you for being here, everybody. Thank you for being here, Tracie. It's been a pleasure.
And I'm going to say one thing, because since we have a fair amount of people here,
yes.
Once we get a decision from the circuit court, finally, as I said, KZ has 40 days to file her appellant brief. And in those 40 days, I will be taking my own sabbatical. I was going to plan on talking about that when I do that video, but since there are a lot of people here, I'll mention it now because unfortunately I am dealing with some health issues and I need to de-stress my life a lot in order to get this under control. And so that means walking away from MAM for a short period of time and seeing if that helps. Mm-hmm. If I get my blood work done and that has helped, then I might be taking a permanent sabbatical. But
you won't be able to stay away.
I know, and that, but my like it's bad. So I
know, I get you.
I'm in the I'm right now. I'm considered high risk for a stroke because of my levels, and so if they don't come down, I'm in trouble. So that's why I was like, okay, I'm gonna take that 40 days, and I am going to, like I said, take my own sabbatical, and hopefully the situation gets better, and I won't die soon. So
no, it's good. It's good to take some time for yourself.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, man.
And nothing should happen in that amount of time. We're going to just be waiting again for 40 days. So,
like, I know spending a week in Australia this year, that was just like so much fun. That really relieved some stress for me. Like, and plus for a week I was, not sitting in front of my computer at my little command center for a week. So it was like change of pace, being in a completely different country. That really helped. So I understand what you mean. It's good to get away from it every once in a while. Even though I wasn't necessarily getting away from it, but anyway. But hey, whatever is fun, whatever recharges your battery. So that's what's necessary. And we definitely don't want to see you stroke out.
Yeah, definitely don't.
So take care of yourself. We want to see you healthy and happy.
Linda, I don't know if you'll de-stress me or just I don't know if that would work us together. That probably wouldn't
you'll also at least get your mind numb with Jello shots. With no Jello or barely any Jello in them. Anyway. All righty, folks. Okay, so that's it for tonight. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you guys
later.